I'm Consuelo Candelaria-Barry, and this is Coffee Talk.
Hi everyone, I'm Kim Perlak. I'm the chair of the guitar department here at Berklee College of Music, and welcome to another Coffee Talk. We're here as usual with Assistant Chair Sheryl Bailey. Hey Sheryl.
Okay, I got my espresso happening here in my Berkeley guitar, old school Berkeley
Ooh,
department mug.
I have the rising or setting sun on my mug. You don't know. And I think that's about where we are this semester. So I think it's perfect. We're also joined as usual by our senior coordinator, Ben Cody. Hey Ben.
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
and
And our special guest today from the ensemble department is Consuelo Candelaria-Barry. Hey, hey, Consuelo.
hello. It's
How
great
are
to be
you?
here.
Yeah. So are you drinking coffee this morning?
Come on, you know, what are the
Oh, that's
joys of
big.
life? It's a big,
Is
big, big, giant mug,
that is
big
huge.
as my head.
It is. It is as big as your head, and that's just not the camera talking. That's a big
I'm
mug.
serious when about my coffee.
Okay. So, okay, now, has that always been? And how do you take your coffee and have you always been serious?
Well, I was, telling Cheryl before we started. I come from a really big family, and they always had coffee, and we would drink coffee from the time we were 5. We were drinking coffee with milk, and it was delicious. So yes, I've
That's
always
awesome.
drank a lot of coffee, and I used to be great with coffee. I could drink coffee at night, you know, but once I had kids, no, that's a horse of a different color. I have to stop
Um,
my tube.
I mean, when you travel, does your coffee habit change? Does it stay consistent? Like when you're teaching in that kind of mode, do you have like a routine, I guess is what I'm saying, and does that routine travel?
Yeah, I just drink coffee all the time. In the morning, it's just a regular habit. I always have it. I call it my sippy cup. I take my big, huge to-go mug, and that's my sippy cup. And as long as it's before 2, it's always filled with coffee. And I'm always coming up to your 4th floor and, stealing the guitar floor coffee, which is awesome of you guys. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. First of all, it's not stealing. And it is our way to get the cool people to come hang out with us.
Oh, you're very nice.
Yeah, so that's really great that you come. Another question we ask everybody is about first days at Berkeley. Um, and you've had a number of different first days, different roles that you've played. But a lot of the people who are listening to this, a lot of the students, like it's their first year or it's going to
Okay.
be their first semester. So, what do you remember looking back? Do you have things that stand out, first impressions of this place?
As a student or a faculty member or anything?
It could be either or both.
Okay. I'm trying to remember way back then. That is a challenge. No, let me really kind of, there was a lot of excitement. I graduated, I was 17, I think. And then I came for the 7-week program. It was 7 weeks then. And so there was a lot of different things happening for me, not just being here, but there was a lot of things like kind of on the hook there because I had come from such a huge family and 8 kids. So financially, for me to be able to come here was kind of out of the question. So uh, this is kind of a big circular type of way of getting there, but I had an accident when I was 5 years old. So it was a drunk driver hit me, and so there was some money that was put away at that time when I was 5, and I didn't know about it. But the parents of the person the kid who hit me, they had put some money away, and so I didn't know that, but my parents wanted to make sure, this is really where I wanted to go. So we did that. And then lo and behold, even though I got a scholarship and things like that, that money facilitated me going. So when I came here so my first days, what I remember is that it was a very, very serious thing, because this is like something that no one in my family was able to really kind of do, other than like, in New Mexico, and they facilitated their own college experience. And I would have done that as well. But to come to this special school, that's how that got facilitated. So I felt a responsibility, heavy responsibility, to make it work and make it happen. So that was really where I was at. That's what I remember. And then I guess in the other part, go ahead.
I was gonna say, and then what about when you came back as a faculty member? Like, what happened then?
Well, that was kind of another weird thing. After I finished Berkeley, I went on the road and just, like we all do, just doing a variety of gigs and things like that. And I came back, and Orville Wright was the chair. Do you remember Orville Wright?
Sheryl, I think probably does, but I don't. That was before my time, so you'll have to tell.
Well, Orville was the chair when I was a student. So, and sometimes he would ask me to sub for him on some gigs, and so he knew me that way. And so he saw me on the street one day, and he said, hey, we're looking for a part-time teacher, to do some teaching in the ensemble department. Would you like to come, and would you like to, do it? And I said, well, okay, I've never taught before in my life, but, I said, okay. And that's really how it happened. I was very nervous. I was, again, it was a feeling of a big responsibility, but in a different way. I wanted to do a really good job, and I think I over prepared and I overdid a lot of different things. And as I continued to teach, I learned how to teach, but it was exciting. And the thing about it was, along with those responsibilities, both as a student and a faculty member, is that you were super, maybe it's, my age or whatever, but you were so inspired by the people that were there. So it was really something that you were just like, okay, this is really where I want to be. And I really kind of fed off of that, like we all did, and you were just excited all the time, really exhausted and excited, because remember we would be getting up at Sheryl 6 a.m. to wait for to book a room to play.
See, I had the thing about just being a guitar player is that why I am so comfortable playing duo with any instrument is because back then, I would just do duos with other guitar players wherever, just like, hey, let's play, because we had to get up early and book those rooms.
Yes. I mean, it was really something, and people don't get it, because we were like, yeah, we would have to get there 6 a.m. and wait till 8 a.m., right? We'd all be sitting there half asleep with our coffee, of course, and we finally booked that room, and unbelievable.
Yeah, well, my memory, so full disclosure, okay, so for our audience, that I was at school same time as Consuelo, and we still admired you for your work ethic. We were always like, where's Consuelo? She's eating the keyboard. There are no more keys left on it because she's in there just tearing it up all the time. Like, that's always was our thoughts about you, and obviously your playing shows that. I mean, I loved hearing you this summer with Ron Savage's band. I just happened to be biking by, and I was like, hey, what is this? And just, wow, always the highest level of
Thank you, Sheryl.
musicianship and musicality, and just when I hear you play, I hear that fire. You bring the fire.
Thank you. Well, right back at you, man. Shoot.
Well, I'm curious when you're working with your students. Actually, this is one of my favorite topics is practicing. Now I'm going to tell you, actually, I've told this story on here. Our friend Shay.
Oh yeah.
Okay, so he's the guy. So me and Evelyn, our friend Evelyn, we were talking, what's that guy practice? And she said, I don't know, I'm going to go spy on him. Like we were just kids, right? So she goes outside of his practice room and listens to him, and she comes back. I was like, what's he doing? She said, I can't tell. It's like random stuff. So I was like, why don't we just ask him? He's our friend. And we still laugh about this today. And we're like, okay, Shay, what do you practice? And he said, what I can't do. That's why it was odds and ends. And we were like, oh, of course. Don't go in the practice room and just do the things that make you feel comfortable. Do the things that you're uncomfortable with. Anyway, so I would love to know how you think about maybe your approaches to your own practice, but how you talk about with students. Because I kind of feel like if you figure that out, or if we can teach our students how to figure that out, that's the biggest part, right? Because after you leave school, it doesn't get any easier to find time,
No,
right?
you're right.
I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, yes and no. I felt like as a student, you're right. But again, I go back to that feeling of that responsibility if I have to make this work because, so I made I really practiced a lot. I did. And I loved it, but it was, I really didn't have any sort of social life, so to speak. It was really going to school, and then I worked on the weekend. I worked like 20 hours on the weekend, and then I work study at Berkeley. And then I would do homework and practice all around that kind of stuff. What I would practice was similar to Shay, is that I would practice things that I didn't know. But when I went, I think I was like 19 or something, I did a cruise ship gig for a while, and I met this other piano player named what was his name? Albert. Albert, I forget his last name, but he's a really good great piano player, I should say. He's a great musician. And he went to Berkeley for a minute, and he used to say, oh, I begin my practice sessions with scales and, to keep facility and your, ability really. And then I start diving into whatever material I need to work on. And I actually started doing that. And I kind of continued to do that because I feel it's important to keep your facility, and then once that's done, that's maybe 25, 30 minutes. Then you can go into whatever you're focusing on. So when I tell my students, I always tell them, start with your scales, I'm talking piano players anyway. If I was talking to my guitar students, I always say, go back to your teacher, have them help you with whatever voicings or whatever, and start with your scales and stuff like that. So that's what I started to do as well. But I would do that. I would sneak me. What would happen was that Danilo, you remember Danilo Perez, of course, but he was maybe a year or two ahead of me. But we would do the same thing. We'd go and we'd spy on Danilo. And Juko Onishi, you remember her? She's another great piano player. She's my roommate. So we would spy on each other. She would be like, what are you doing there? I'm like, oh, I'm doing voicings. I'm doing 2/5s. And she was like, oh man, did you do this one? I'm like, oh my God, let me hear that one. And then that's how that would be.
I used to get a room next to a saxophone players, and when they'd slow down all their diminished licks, then I'd be like, oh, that's what that is, because it was too fast on the record. And they'd be in there, do, 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 do. I'd be like, oh, okay, cool.
That's smart.
But that's what you're talking about is so great, because you're talking about a community and trading ideas and sharing ideas, supporting each other, and maybe I'm sorry, be a little jealous and a little competitive in a healthy way, right?
It was always a healthy way. And I really have to say that because, of course, you wanted to be at your top, but I took lessons with Donald Brown. So, all these people were taken from him at a variety of times. Like Cyrus Chestnut was taking lessons from him too, of course, Danilo. I think Shay did take but there was a ton of people, and you always wanted to be your best. So it would be an element of really pushing you to do your best. So there was competitiveness, but it wasn't kind of like a, you know, oh, I'm gonna be better than you or whatever. But you wanted to be your absolute best, because somebody would look at them like, oh my God, that is so hip. What are you doing there? You know, what is this? Oh my God, I want to get that, you know. So you're absolutely right. It was much more of a community thing, but it certainly was a pushing thing. Absolutely.
You know, I have a question for both of you about this because I think that kind of practice room culture was a huge part of when I went to school too. And I wonder, do you think that students still have that? Is that common now to go to the practice room and then that's how you meet people and that's how you hear them? Or do you think that's something that we have to try to help people get back to? Do you think that right now students are having that same experience where they're like going to the rooms and practicing together?
Well, in my opinion, if I might speak up there, Cheryl, is it's a different time now. People consume, I'm using that word because that's what they call it now, music in a different way. So when we were coming up, it really literally is a different time. So the way that we would experience music was that we would experience it and experience it together, and it would unfold together in a lot of different ways. So now, one of the things that I notice is that the students, and not all of them, and I think it's slightly changing, we would be outside of our ensemble room waiting for our teacher to come, and we would be like saying, did you go check out that Wayne Shorter at Jonathan Swift's? And we would be like, yes, and it was, and we would be talking about it and saying whatever, did you go to this concert? No, what was going on? Oh, so-and-so was doing this and that. So, and not even big concerts, like each other's concerts. Like do you remember Iden Essen, the great pianist? And he's Turkish pianist, and he's a incredible composer, and he's in Turkey now still. But he used to play with Vadim, and this guitar player Vadim. Remember Vadim? Yeah, I mean, it was incredible, the level of musicianship, and Kaya Karkarpe, and then Vinny Colaiuta would come in and they would play, and we'd go see these concerts at Riles, and and talk about it outside of the ensemble room. Now I don't see that. I see people on their laptop with their earbuds in, or their phone, and it's just a different situation. And I feel like I don't know how to feel about it because I'm not their age. So I'm not sure what that experience is. But it has changed. I would love for it to come back to what you said, Kim. I don't know. What do you think, Cheryl?
Yeah, what do you think about that?
Wow. I don't know. I see a little of both. I mean, the folks that I see that are really growing are the ones that are out and hanging out and checking each other out. I mean, because I think that's just going to be, but I think there is a big thing where they watch stuff on Instagram and TikTok and stuff like that. That's how they consume, if you want to say, yeah, see performances. And that's, you know, I mean, that's what it is, but it's kind of strange too, because those are short little clips, right? Not a whole set. I mean, there's something so incredible to see really a master player, how they put together their set from beginning end, the thought that they put into it and how they arrange the music, even if it's just sort of a loose jazz gig, how do they put together or feel the arranging those soloists and whatnot, like that. There's so much to see in that long form, or maybe people think that's long form now, but that was the form that we always came up. And also, listening to music is, I mean, we had vinyl, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I actually had a student come in and said, "Hey, I heard this lady singing 'Goodbye Pork Pie Hat," and I said, "That lady's Joni Mitchell, and that's part of a whole sequence that was really thought in depth about.
Misleading.
And and by the way, go listen to the original Ming. But I think what we need to share with our students is that they can't experience music like a consumer anymore. You're professional, and this is part of your craft. So go listen. You need to get in it. Better yet, if you can get the vinyl, but okay, the CD, because the vinyl, 20 minutes aside, they planned that whole sequence. That was the event, and then you flip it over, and then there's another event.
It's an arc,
Arc.
and it's
And
a
I think,
story.
yeah, and the students need to think like professionals and know their craft. Maybe they're not going to do it like that now, but
They
it
don't.
is part of our craft and part of our history. And so, I mean, I'm always encouraging that with students to really, you have to go deeper than, oh, I listen to 10 seconds of a song and just scroll through different stuff. We can't be the same. And like maybe you're going to produce stuff like that, but to really be deep, you have to, you know your history. You have to know yourself, and you have to know the history to move forward. I feel like, that's my.
I agree, really. And the thing is too, is that I think it's a difficulty for them because they were really raised on short clips. Like everything is that way, a reel or a Snapchat or the TikTok. It's like attention for only like that. And then like sometimes, I have two sons, and they do listen to whole pieces of music, but sometimes they'd be playing a song. Check this song out, Mom, or whatever. I'll be listening to it, and then they go, "Oh, but wait!" And I'm it was like, "Wait! The song's not over. I want to hear how it go. How I want to hear it through the whole thing." And so it's really funny how, that's part of their experience, and that's part of what they're bringing to the college. And I think, to your point, Sheryl, we really do need to help them kind of stretch their attention, and be able to really kind of like, okay, hold the moment, hold the whole, in the ensemble or in the whatever it is that they're doing musically. So.
Yeah, I think that's really valuable what both of you are saying. And Ben, I want to get your opinion on this as well, because one thing as you're talking, I was thinking about is that what's so cool about the way that students listen to music now is that you have this entry point, like something grabs your attention, and then you have access. So it was so hard for us to go, like, if you heard something that you thought was cool, sometimes it was really hard to even figure out what it was. Especially
Yeah.
if it was like out of your style, like you go hear someone play and you're not a jazz player and they play a tune and you don't know what it is. I remember going around and my friends saying like, what's the standard that starts like this? And then singing the thing. Like, what is that one? And because I didn't know, but I wanted to hear that record. And then you'd have to go to the library maybe and check it out even. Maybe you didn't even have a record store in your town where you could get it. So you have this access that's so cool. And so on that piece, I think it's like taking what both of you have said, transitioning to how are you going to listen to it now that you're a professional? And I think part of our job is helping people, that's your entry point. You're really interested, you're kind of a fan, you're scrolling through stuff, you're excited about something, but now that you're a professional, what does it mean to listen to music now? And how are you going to take that responsibility on to trace that back so that you can use it and not just copy it or not just sample it? Like you don't own it because you have it on your phone. Like now you're in the mix. And the other thing I think that I've learned from the students is that sometimes when we hear a little clip of something, or when we're not as intentional if we're just gonna share 30 seconds of something, because we just assume that everyone's gonna listen to the whole 6 minutes or the whole 5 minutes. But that's not actually true, right? And think about, when we share things to bring listeners in, what is that little 10 or 20 seconds what's their first impression? How do we grab attention in order to have someone welcomed into a deeper experience? So those are things that I'm thinking about. And Ben, I know that you're kind of sitting in the middle of where we are and where the students are in terms of generation. And I wonder, How do you hear the three answers so far to this question?
Yeah, so I mean, well, I have definitely, I think, a little bit of a unique view on social media because I mean, it's. I always tell people like social media has done more for my career as a performer than any gig or any tour has, but it is an interesting um, situation I think we're in right now because I was really the last generation that grew up without. I mean, there was social media, but it wasn't like it was now. I mean, there was Facebook. Really, when I was in high school, like Facebook was the big one. Instagram was just starting out, but it wasn't really on your phone like it is now. So it was still kind of like an event, like you said, listening to a record. It's kind of the same thing. Like you'd go sit down at your computer, and then you could go on social media that way, and then you do that for whatever half an hour, and then you go about your day. And that now it's always the access there, and that clearly has had what I consider a negative effect, I think, on just the collective attention span of everyone, like even myself. I'm guilty of it sometimes too. But what I've tried to do is really, and I know I've said this before, but I really consider Instagram and TikTok like Gen Z's MTV, where it's really just
Yeah, that's true.
if you look at it as a tool to really market and advertise yourself, and not necessarily as the art form itself. And for me, I've always kind of had the playbook, so to speak, of I'll post a little clip, maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds, of something, pretty, flashy. And I always tell people, it's like, I'd never play on a record or live like that for like an extended period of time, but that's what you kind of need to do. And I think of it as kind of catching someone in the web and then have them say, oh, this is pretty cool, follow. And then over time, you can try to win them over. So, oh, by the way, I have, 5 records out. Oh, by the way, my band's coming, we're playing at this venue tonight, and then kind of catch them that way. And then because there is so much available for everyone to take advantage of nowadays as far as just being able to deep dive and well, even growing up, like for me, like there was YouTube, so it wasn't like you had to necessarily sit down and listen to something over and over to try to learn how to play a lick. You could easily look up a live recording of that person playing, which and I know that some people would argue that it probably hurts your development of listening in ears, which I think is true. But at the same time, I think it's such an advantage to be able to really deep dive and just learn from the artists or from other even online music teachers in a way that you know people didn't have access for. But I think it is a slippery slope of still having that respect and that understanding of really knowing the music and not just learning licks, and learning really what creates that lick. But I think that just having that, like I said, that respect and that kind of deeper understanding of being able to learn really the music itself and what the artist what is using to get that music rather than just being able to play a 7-second piece of music and then once you're in a real band setting you just can't hang with a band. So I think the challenge that I'm seeing is just having the younger generation coming up, just having them have that understanding of really what is social media versus the actual art form itself.
Yeah, Consuelo, how do you work with students now? Like, given, I think, Ben, that was so great the way you said it. Like,
It
you
was.
can see it's good, and then you can see it's bad. And, like, in the same answer, you're like, oh, so positive. Ooh, could be so difficult. How do you work with students in the ensemble department with that balance? Like, what is the real art form? What is really playing versus, like, how are you attracting people to your playing? Like, how do you work with them on the core skills?
Well, that's kind of a huge question, really. So it depends on where the students are, when they come into whatever ensemble is. Like we have mixed styles, and then we have specific ensembles as well. So really, what I try to do is when they come into the ensemble, I teach them something by ear, something that's fun. And number one, when I'm doing something by ear, I can get an assessment of really where they are in terms of their ears right away. Number two, it's kind of simple enough where they can maybe get into something, whether it's like, guitar comp, or a part, or a melody, a horn player, or the piano, or whatever. And then we kind of go from there. Sometimes they'll say to me, well, I've never improvised before, or I've never, I'm going to be an MP&E major, or I'm going to be, I'm more of a composer than a player. So there's so many kind of facets to that. I think what my job is, or what my gig is really kind of to expose them to things that, number one, that they don't know, and number two, to things that will help facilitate whatever it is that they're, trying to get after. It's not always successful, depending on what what they're doing, or where their focus is, or if they have time to practice, because oftentimes they don't. Oftentimes they have a lot of heavy writing that's happening, or they have up till 5 a.m. in the studio recording, in Peony. So they're that kind of thing kind of gets in the way. So it's finding the right balance, and I feel like there's sometimes a lot of stress for them, and I really try to be like, you know what? It's important. It really is important, but it's not the everything. It's not, it's just music, really, at the end of the day, which is super important. But by the same token, so we just try to find a balance. I kind of take each class as it comes, each student as they come, and more often than not, we find our way through. I don't know if that answers your question, or.
Yeah, I think it does. I mean, I love what you said about students who say, oh, I'm a writer, I'm a producer. As all of us in this Zoom have worked in different capacities in that way, as producers, in recording studios, as writers, and it's so important to develop your core skills. And I think at a place like Berkeley, what happens is everyone has a different entry point.
Yes.
Everyone has a different level of entry. And so I think instead of saying, I don't need this because I'm going to be, because you're insecure that you don't have a strong foundation coming in, just be uncomfortable and go and learn how to build your foundation as a player and an ensemble player, and go for the things. You're in this environment that's so rich, and you can learn from great faculty. Drive right into the deep end, like dive right in there, so that you can learn how to improvise, you can learn how to play with others, you can learn about your tone, you can learn about how to play in an ensemble, because that can only make you a better producer. You're not going to hear all the parts with nuance on a record if you can't produce them with your hands. Not as deeply. I have never seen evidence that that's true across the board, with few exceptions. I've also seen no evidence that you can write parts really effectively if you haven't had that opportunity to sit and play parts and watch how people develop parts, like on the fly in an ensemble. You know what I mean? Like, it's a working environment, right? And you can go in and be a capable person and then kind of learn to work in that environment. I think if you avoid it, it's always a fear point for you. It's always a point of weakness. And so I love what you're saying, because you just got to come as you are and be willing to have that discomfort that just comes with naturally getting better from wherever you are, that hopefully you'll continue throughout your development, right?
I wanted to say one other thing too. As you were speaking, you talked about tone, like for my guitar players that I have, and many times in my mixed styles classes, they'll plug in and then they'll start playing, and it's not style specific, or they're not aware of that it's super high endy, or they're just not aware. And I'm like, man, you got, or what, it's like, just spend a second getting a sound, right?
Yeah.
In the amp, and like wondering do they spend time doing that? Is that important to them? Why hasn't that been brought up to them, or are they even aware of what that is? Like,
Yeah.
even playing rock, like Ben, I mean, I'm like, they don't even know how to break up the amp. It's like, and I'm a jazz piano player. I'm like, dude, that's not, or whatever. That's not, you gotta do the drive, dude, whatever.
Yes. Listen, I am a classical guitarist, and one of my great accomplishments in life, having had worked as a producer, many people who know me know the story. I had an injury, I had an accident when I was doing my classical master's degree in performance, and I had to take a break for a year to recover, and it was
Oh,
fine. It's
wow.
like, yeah, but I got hired full time as a producer in the recording studio and
Okay.
studio manager, and so I just learned how to do stuff. And so when I moved to Austin later, even though I was still playing, I was working in these like pop recording studios, just as a member like of the kind of music community, going and listening to live shows to see if it matched the record for the producers, right? And the A&R people. And I had this liberal arts class I was teaching, kind of to pay my rent, right? And I got these non-music majors, fine arts elective, and they could tell the sonic tonal difference and the arrangement difference between Atlantic, Stax, and Motown. Like,
Wow.
someone who's like a math major, I could be like, is that Stax, Atlantic, or Motown? I'd be like, oh, Atlantic, tell me why. And they could tell you the difference between different styles of country. Like, that's like the Johnny Cash, Willie Nelson thing. But that right there is when you're moving, into Waylon Jennings took it and went here, because you can develop it is the point, right? And a lot of the students wait until I'm going to wait and do that when I have my sound alike project for MP&E. It's like, well, how about listening, as you two were talking about, why not listen to all the different styles of the music you might be producing? And like we're saying, like I needed a job, and I loved music and I loved working with people, and you can learn the differences and really get into it and really respect it. You don't have to only do your thing, because in life you might be asked to do different things, and then you know what you learn when you're not in the center of the circle. My classical guitar playing really expanded
Oh,
because
gosh.
I had listened to so much jazz and pop music and country music.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
and I learned so much about tone and sound and microphones and everything, from everyone who did kind of something that seems so far removed from me. And then you realize, well, it's the same parameters, the same things. We just look at them differently, right?
Well,
It's
you
like,
talked about those different types of music, having that experience, and growing up in New Mexico in Albuquerque. I grew up really listening to just regular radio, but what was going on then was what was the Police, and that synchronicity record, and then Van Halen, Women and Children First. Those, all that stuff was happening. And by the same token, my parents, were Mexican American, so they would have, Trio Los Panchos playing in the background, mariachi weddings. Our wedding was a mariachi wedding. Poor Kevin Barry, who's one of the great, he's my husband, as you know.
yes, yes.
We had this giant mariachi wedding.
Yeah, for those people listening who, if this hasn't been clear, Kevin Barry is one of the great, great, great sidemen of popular music and country and blues and
Everything.
slide guitar and everything under the sun.
Yeah.
And yeah,
Kind of a freak,
amazing.
I guess.
Yeah.
I gotta say, even if I wasn't married to that guy, I'd be like, wow, okay, what the heck, man,
I like, what the heck? That's the best compliment. What the heck, man?
Dude,
Yeah.
what the heck? It's like, gee. And then he sits down at the piano and he's like playing I'm like, just stop that, man. Geez,
Yeah.
that's so swinging or so bluesy. I'm like, gee, money, crickets, gee.
Yeah, and also not a jerk. Like comes up, pours a
No.
coffee. Hey, how's it going? What's happening over here? You're like, oh, okay. Like you just dropped in from guitar heaven or something. But sure, yeah, we have cream. You know what I mean? Like, sure.
Yeah, yeah. But he's a guy has so much experience, and especially with a lot of stuff that I didn't have experience with, and a lot of that was country music, and oh my God, it just was like such a. I just thought, what have I been missing? It's like that's Merle Haggard, oh, that's freaking cool, and all those George Jones, oh my God. I just was blown away, absolutely blown away. The soulfulness, like it's like Ray Charles, you know, that kind of connection. Oh, George Jones and Ray Charles, that was like kind of each other's favorite artists, that whole thing. And, you know, I was in my little jazz world of, you know, bebop and whatever. But
Yeah, but and that's also great though. You don't,
yeah,
and I think that kind of deep listening and making the connections like Cheryl was talking about, that is part of being a professional. And it's part of saying like, this may be the style I choose to work in the most, or that's my artistic center. And yet it doesn't mean that I can't learn from others. And then for some people, like Kevin, that opens up your professional world if you can play in those styles, because
oh yeah.
then that gives you these other opportunities. And if you want to play for a living, that may be the way to go for you. If it suits your personality, if it suits your interest and your skill set, but understanding like how to work in those styles and what they are, that's the first step, right? Yeah.
And going to a school like Berkeley it's one of those little microcosms that actually it's you're exposed to everything really. You
Yeah.
know, I thought, okay, I'm gonna come and go ahead.
No, yeah. No. I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, and you know, I thought, okay, all these great jazz musicians were, and it was like kind of a golden time, Cheryl, when it was just so many players were there. It was just, you couldn't help but kind of absorb it all. But also, I started thinking, oh, people would say, oh, God, do you play Latin music? Because, that's a natural kind of a question because of, Candelaria, that's my name. And, because a lot of the Latino people that were coming, they did play, salsa or kind of mambo or whatever kind of stuff, Afro-Cuban. And I was like, no, I really don't play that kind of stuff. The stuff that I grew up listening to is more, mariachi, the romantico kind of Cirilo Spanish stuff. And then, of course, straight up top 40, music, I said earlier. But then I started studying that stuff, and it has really become integrated into my music as a writer because I compose a lot. That's a big part of what I love to do. I have written stuff more in a pop vein, and it's coming straight from my heart, but it's only because I had that experience of learning and being exposed to those types of music. I'm a kind of a frustrated rock drummer, actually.
I see what I love about all of this is I think it should help you feel good if you're young, because I think when we have these conversations, it does sound a lot like we're like the old days, and we really got into music in a deep way right away. We were using what we had. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like your parents' records and our friends' stuff and what someone was bringing. That was like our version of social media.
I
Was
was
just
gonna
the
let my
social
dog out.
part.
She's like, give me 1 second. I'm just gonna let her out.
Yeah,
She's
okay, go
like,
for
oh
it.
my God.
And so I think that Ben and Cheryl, um, that is kind of the what students are doing now, and the way that we kind of celebrate how we came up. You can celebrate how you're coming up, like you're finding so much music on your phone. And the way that Consuelo and Cheryl and Ben and I had to, take those moments of standing in the hallway outside of someone's practice room or meeting someone at a show, and then say, okay, what am I going to do with this in a deep way? That's all you have to do with the way you enter. Like we all still had to go through the discomfort of asking someone to be our friend and play guitar with us or piano with us or whatever. We all still had to go to this comfort of like learning some lick and then going to play it for a more experienced person and having them say, well, you don't even know what you're doing. You don't know what that scale is.
What was
You don't know what that
that?
arpeggio is. You have a lot of work to do. Or, we all had that experience of like sitting down and saying like, hey, I learned this thing. And someone's like, what are you doing with your tone? And what are you doing with your technique? And stop. Go back. So that's just the experience of being in the student role. It doesn't matter where you heard the music. So I think embrace the fact that you're hearing tons of stuff. And now allow yourself to do the hard work of becoming a professional, which is everything that we're talking about, right?
Yeah, as players. And here's the thing too, is that some of them are coming in and maybe they don't necessarily want to be players.
That's
So
okay.
what's, how do we help them achieve what they want to do, right? So
Right.
if they're required to have an ensemble, so that means they have to have some ability in playing,
Hmm.
you know?
Yeah, and I just think the deeper you go, the better you are at the thing you choose. Because the avenues change, right? And what stays constant, hopefully, is you and your awareness of who you are and your awareness of your skill sets. And the more you can do with what you can make happen, the more adaptable you are, I think, you know?
Well said, yeah.
Okay, so that brings us to Cheryl and Consuelo. I'm going to kick it back over to you because there isn't one person who's going to watch this and know what department you teach for and not want to talk about ratings.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what are ratings? Like, the myth, ratings, and ratings auditions, the myths, the fear, the triumphs, the truth. So I'm gonna hand it to the two of you to talk through, like, what are ratings from your perspective, Consuelo? What is a ratings audition? What are you looking for? And how do you use this, like, not just as an assessment, but as a tool? And I know Cheryl's got a lot to say because you take our hundreds and hundreds of our students through this discussion every semester.
Oh, I'm happy to hear that, Cheryl, because there are a lot of myths. So one of the things that I want to say is that I give an actual clinic on this twice a semester, once before midterms and once before final auditions. So we're having another one December the 3rd. Let me triple check that, double check. And I will let you know. Yes, it's not the 3rd. It is the 1st, December 1st. So it'll be 6 to 8. And it's in room 114 usually, but I will make sure and get that information to Cheryl or to you, whatever, and let you know. So what the auditions are, what the process is something we encourage all students to do at least once a semester for a variety of reasons, for the experience of auditioning. And within an audition, there's all kinds of things happening where you're kind of put on the spot. You have to have a prepared thing. So that's another component. You have to prepare something. There's a sight reading component. There's an improvisation component. The team is there and we are listening. There's usually 3 of us. And the team consists of either piano, bass, and drum, usually. So if there's a piano player that comes in, the staff will go out, and the pianist will play with the other 2, or the guitar player will play with the trio, or if they prefer to play trio themselves with just guitar, bass, and drums, that's also an option. So to begin, you come in, you prepare a piece that you play well, the best that you feel, oh, I feel great on this, whether it's blues or rock or jazz or, reggae, metal. Prepare that and bring it in. Oftentimes when we have, I've heard some great metal players. I mean, crazy, beautiful, amazing. And they will usually go through their laptop, the PA, because they have a really processed sound. So that's how they'll do that. If that's the case, and they want to play with a track, that's totally acceptable, but they have to think ahead. So it's a planning thing too. They'll want to think ahead and say, okay, I'm going to get this all ready to go. Be ready to come in, plug it in, test it. They're in tune, they're all ready to roll, and then they hit. The reason I say that is because it's only a 15-minute slot. So if that preparation is wasted, that'll eat into the rest of their time, which is not, that won't be a good assessment because we'll have to, okay, yeah, well, we got to wrap it up because, time and la, la, la. So make sure that that's something that you think about. The other thing is you don't want to prepare or have something that's incredibly complicated. So you have a team And they're all human beings. I mean, they're great musicians or whatever, but if there's a lot of heavy sight reading, let's say, if it's like a bass line that's in seven, or, whatever the case may be. So you want to, really kind of focus in on something that you do really well, but that's pretty straightforward, and the team can do a pretty decent job to accompany you and let you sound as good as possible, and and support it in the best way that they can, so that you'll play that. Then the next part is going to be the improv part. Now, we generally say to the students, what is your style of choice? You might be a person that loves all kinds of music and all styles, and you feel comfortable. But then many times people will say, well, I really kind of live in like a country world. I love playing country. That's, what I feel like I do best. I like all kinds of stuff but country, let's say. So we'll choose a tune that has more of a country vibe on it, so that the student will feel more comfortable playing whatever tune that we're going to be assessing them on. And then they'll play that, and then we'll have them improvise on that piece, Then the next part is the reading part. And you get 2 chances at the reading. So if, let's say, and we try to go above your current rating. So if, let's say, you come in, you have a level 3, we'll test you at a level 4. Now, it's conceivable that if you've been shedding your reading, you nailed it, we'll go up to level 5, so there's all those things. You'll read it. Let's say you make a mistake the first time through, no problem. It's great, actually, because you get to hear the band play, and there's a lot of rhythmic or whatever kind of cues that'll happen within the rhythm section that will, oh, that's what that figure is. Okay, I get it. So the next time around, you're going to have a better idea of how to do that example. So that's the reading component. After that happens, we'll say thank you. You're going to get your, stuff pretty soon. As soon as we, go and have a powwow in the other room and discuss what happened, we come up and we agree on whatever satisfactory or unsatisfactory would be, and we give the student their ratings. And at the end of that form, we have a recording thing where the faculty will kind of talk to the student and say, this is what we heard, this is what you might be able to work on, consider these types of things, and then we submit that form. So the student should get their rating as well as the written comments, and a faculty member talking to them and really saying, this is what we heard. One thing I want to say is that ratings are just ratings. They're not you as a person. It doesn't define you. Like, you're a bad musician if you didn't get your ratings up, or you're, anything like that. That's not at all what it is. It's purely a placement tool, so that we can put you as best we can in a place where you'll thrive, where you'll learn and you'll feel comfortable, challenged, but comfortable. Like, I'm sinking, I can't hang here, that's not what we want, because you're not going to learn. You're going to feel bad. We don't want that. They want you to feel good. So there's a lot more in there. Please let me know if you have other questions.
Well, thank you for that, because there's always the question, and that was good for me to know about, that the students get all the comments and stuff, because I didn't know that. It's been so long since I've done a ratings audition. But the thing that I also tell them, so when guitar students come in, Kim and I meet with them. We have an orientation. We get into it, and one of the things I tell them all is that these are, first of all, it's an amazing opportunity to get skill assessment from professionals. I wish I did. I wish I could have somebody go, hey, Sheryl, like, to point you in a direction. And also, most importantly, is their benchmarks. Because, and in this way, that I think it is, even if you're not a performance major, especially if you're a performance major, but to audition as much as you can, because that's part of your, especially performance major, that's going to be part of your career. So no one likes it. I don't know anyone who likes to audition, but you get better at it. You know what I mean? Like, you just learn by doing it. So that's one thing, but everybody's here working hard. I guess that's the thing is, so if you come in and you have 2s or 3, like 2s in your reading, okay, and you go in the shed and you work your tail off, and then you go back in and wow, now you got threes and fours and fives. Like that's really like a pat on the back. And that's also something you don't get out in the professional world. So an immediate like, wow, all this work I'd put into this is really paid off. And I think that can be a really powerful learning tool, and
Yeah,
not this
sure.
thing to be, oh, I got threes in reading. Oh, yeah, like, oh, I suck, or this, whatever, I give up. It's actually like, no, man, that is pointing you like that's telling you, hey, spend some time with that. And then you come back and you're going to do better. And that feels great. So
Yeah.
I think it can be extremely powerful learning tool for everybody. And again, I'm always saying like, wow, I could use, I have to do, well, as professionals, we do this for ourselves. Like I need to work on this skill and I need to work on this skill. But
Mhm.
now you have like a really clear, oh, my reading, oh, I need to work on improvising more. Obviously a classical musician, they never did it. So
Right.
you're now
Yeah.
pointing to like, hey, get in this experience and do it, and you're gonna do it, and it'll be also fun to do. And then you come back and you're like, wow, okay, I'm doing all right.
That's right, because I think when you are both talking about how overwhelming it can be, especially at a place like Berkeley, in terms of your time commitments, it's a really good way to focus your time on what is coming across in your playing and what needs assistance. And I just want to say something about the comments, because I think that sometimes the reason faculty don't know that there's comments is because it's hard as a student to have the courage to share your comments. And I'm so glad when people do. We had a student come in who was really upset about the outcome of his audition, not because of the adjudicators, but because he felt like it said something, as you're saying, about his ability and him, like deeper than us,
Define
like
you
a
as a
simple,
human being.
you
It's
bet. Yeah, like his potential. And I just said, well, was there feedback? Would you send it to me? And he was there and he forwarded it to me. And the comments were really detailed and they were fantastic. But I think in the moment when you feel vulnerable and you read the feedback right when you feel that way, sometimes what you're hearing and seeing in there is not actually what's there. So what was really helpful to him, I think, was when I looked at it, I said, "Oh, it sounds like you had a really good day." And what they're pointing out to you is that there are a few areas you want to strengthen so that if you go into an ensemble in a one level up, you won't feel buried by the material. And so it looks like what they've done is they've said, go to your private teacher and work on these three things and then come back. And then I showed him and we read it together and it had been a few days, right? And he said, yeah, that's actually what it looks like. You know what I mean?
I'm
And
so
it was
happy you
really,
did that, Kim,
oh, yeah.
because that's really great because oftentimes, and that doesn't happen often, they don't get an opportunity to have somebody like you say, oh, and to kind of reflect on it in a different way. So that's fantastic.
Well, thanks for saying that. And I think that I'm just encouraging, we talked to Tyrone Chase, who's the fantastic guitar player, who is the assistant chair of the ensemble department, about seeing if teachers might be able to receive the comments for their students as well, which would be helpful. In the meantime, while that tech issue gets worked out, if you're a student and you're listening to this, bring your comments to your teacher. Just bring the whole thing, because it will really show and then it helps you see the gap in when you feel vulnerable, how do you hear feedback? That's super important to know as a professional,
And
right?
the audition process is important for many different ways. Like even if you're not going to be a player, you're going to be doing some sort of audition, some sort of application, some sort of face-to-face with somebody at whatever company. Maybe it's in regard to nothing at all with music, or music, the fringes of the music. So the whole process of doing that is really, it's very valuable. And Sheryl, you mentioned, where you have three faculty that are, varying, instrumentalists or singing or, DJing, whatever it is, they're there to be able to reflect and say, okay, to the student, and tell them, okay, this is what we heard. Maybe try this, maybe try that. And granted, we only have 15 minutes, but within that 15 minutes, we'll try to give you a real, as in-depth as we can, reflection on what we heard. And if, like Kim, you got to kind of clarify that with the student, they're young, and sometimes it's like, well, what does this mean?
Yeah, and I mean, don't you all think, in all honesty, we all have to do this? Like Sheryl said, we do this with our friends. We do this with, I have a writing partner. I have a couple writing partners and duos. And sometimes I'll be working on something, it's not coming across, and I feel really vulnerable. Like, okay, last night I had a rehearsal and I just had to say, like, okay, I'm trying to do this thing, and I don't think it's working. And then there's that moment where, of course, the other person says, okay, well, let's hear what you're working on. And there isn't a person alive in those moments that consistently goes, yes, I am so happy to learn and grow, and I am ready to play this and feel great about playing something that could look like a disaster. We all have that little moment where it's like, okay, here goes nothing, and
Dive in.
you know, right? So I think that's what the practice, but isn't that what practice is for? And then what I find is it's like, even if I think like, oh, will this betray? Because there's that little part of you in the back that's like, I'm going to do this thing and it's going to betray that I'm not good enough. And no matter what happens, like no matter how we say it, there's that little moment where you might feel that way, and then you have to step out of that and say, no, I'm just getting better. And you have to constantly remind yourself. And I think, Consuelo, like if you've heard someone in their second semester, right? And then you heard them again in semester 3, 4, 5. When you hear them again, even though you hear hundreds of students, there might be that person in fifth semester where you're saying, wow, I remember you from second semester, and that's so impressive how you've grown, right? And
I've had
that's
this.
an endorsement.
Well, I've had that experience many times.
Mhm.
Like, I mean, really, like 50, more than that times over the years. And it's always really, really gratifying to see, not necessarily to me, like it's my, yeah, thanks to me, whatever. No, it's really thanks to the work that student did, and in receiving whatever kind of like, well, you might check this out, try this, do that. The student took initiative and really worked hard, and then they saw, and then oftentimes it'll even happen in a semester where I have a student in the beginning of the semester to the end of the semester. I have a violin right now who's a classical player. She's in my mixed styles. I don't want to, get her privacy, whatever. She's a classical player, excellent classical player. Couldn't improvise, didn't know how to improvise, was absolutely like terrified of improvisation. And she thought, just like you were saying, Kim, this is an indicator of I'm no good, or I can't do this, or I'm betraying, I'm bad, or whatever. She came to one office hour. She has an excellent private teacher. As it progressed, now we're not, well, what, 3 or 4 weeks away from finals. I told her, I said, you have just really blossomed. I'm not saying you're like a genius, but from here to now, you should be freaking proud, because look at you, you're playing while you need it and doing it. What the heck? I'm just saying like that. And she was really happy because it was real. I told her, you kicked butt, man, you did great. And she worked hard. But
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Sheryl, I watch you work on reading these charts that are like, they're like, I mean, Sheryl likes to,
What is she doing, man? Let me see.
I
What
am a
is she doing?
score taper. Like, I like to tape my parts. And the other day, I'm in there, and like, she takes this part, and it literally unfurls. Like, and I was like,
My God.
I don't even think, even if you had like conveyor belt of music stands, And the reason I'm bringing this stuff up is that I just watch you still at this stage. Like, you have these skills now after doing this type of thing that these auditions train you to do. Is like, okay, I have this gig and I just got the music. Thank you, Kevin Harris. Thank you, Burrs Gertz. You know what I mean? That like, and they're
Names have been
really.
changed to protect the innocent.
Sorry, I almost didn't say it. I thought, what the heck? We love those people. We've adopted them into the department, as many have been adopted. But what I watch you do is you assess it, and that's why you have the whole thing spread out. Is that you're not freaking out and you're not like, oh my God, what if I can't? You're just saying like, how am I gonna make this work, and can I make it work within the time that I have before this gig? And what do I need to know from the composer, and how am I gonna structure my practice so that I can meet the challenge? Like the gig is on Thursday. I just got the chart. It is literally 10 pages longer than I thought it was going to be. And there's all these like super intricate rhythms and different parts. And then I just watch you sort of like take a deep breath and then break it down, right? And then sort of like monitor your time. And then because we work together, then we actually, like you're saying, okay, I think I have this thing, do I have this amount of time? Like, how can I structure my days to make it happen? And is that feasible? And I think that's another just life skill that you've built up because you had this kind of training that really comes from Consuelo, what you're asking students to do. It's like there are these four categories. We have these different opportunities for you to come and use your private lesson and these like workshops and your current ensemble, and then you have to decide like, can't do I have the resources to meet this challenge, and how do I do it? I think that's valuable.
Yes, and I'm just kind of circled back to another thing that you were talking about. We were talking about a little bit was the classical musicians. So that is the first audition for them is really a lot, very kind of critical, because it's their first introduction into playing like with a band and in a band setting. Sometimes they say, well, I've prepared this piece with my private teacher and it's a classical solo piece or something like that. So that is not what we're looking for, because the ensemble audition is just that. It's how do I play with an ensemble? It's an ensemble audition. So that's something to consider, and that's why I'm really happy. I know that Tyrone has been visiting the departments, and I have also said I'd really like to be part of that too, and go to the departments and really kind of during an office, not an office hour, a meeting time, and kind of talk about it too. And like, how can private teachers prepare especially their classical students to do their first audition?
Okay, so on that point, um, say I'm a classical player. For the Berklee College of Music auditions, do I have to have a secondary style to look at in terms of ensemble, or can it be primarily classical? Like, do you do like a classical chamber music style audition, or do
No,
you
we
have to
don't do
have a
that.
secondary style? So it could be like say I'm a nylon string guitar player, a natural would be like a Latin jazz kind of thing, or like
Yeah.
a Latin music kind of thing, or like maybe you go the finger style route and go into songwriting in different styles like that. Is that more accurate? Same, I guess, but I guess for bluegrass you would be able to
Well, it's
put
still
together.
you would still utilize similar skills. It would be your prepared piece, but you would be playing with a group. So if it's a finger style or a Latin jazz or thing, you would still bring in a part for, just say, oh, so this is a blues, or this is a like a Chet Atkins tune or something like that, and you would still go about it in an ensemble setting. you
Gotcha.
know.
Yep.
But we don't do like a chamber audition or any of that. There are, we do offer those ensembles, but it's by audition.
Right, and also I guess you could also cross-register into the conservatory to do. We've had students do that
Yeah,
and
I'm not
play
familiar with
play
that
that.
stuff,
But
but
for the
I would see
Berkeley,
so.
the idea is that's the idea is that you're becoming more stylistically diverse.
Uh-huh.
And we've had that. I auditioned in LA when I did the on the road. One of my favorite auditions was this wonderful cellist from Haiti, Gabriel, and he played the first cello suite, and he played it beautifully. And then when he went to improvise, he said, "I'm not going to be able to do that." And we said, "Well, what if we do like we'll just do like a major key progression. We'll just take G major." And actually, he played beautifully. And it was a big lift for him because then he realized, well, maybe it's not that different. It's just a different way of looking at the skill set that I have, right?
Really, yeah, for sure.
It's an invitation, I think. And so I don't,
Yes.
like we want you to be here if you're a great classical player. And we hope that because you chose Berkeley, it means that you also want to be versatile, which will serve you so well, I think.
Yeah, because there's a lot of places you can go that are really more focused for classical. I mean, you know what I'm saying? The draw for Berkeley is that it's so eclectic and, you know, has all those things to offer.
Yeah, and it won't defer you. That's such a myth. I think I want to say to classical players and really anybody that if you study a different style, it pulls your attention. It hopefully does pull your attention, but it does make you stronger as a core musician.
Yeah.
Great. Consuelo, is there any advice that you want to give to students that you've kind of thought about as we've been talking, like almost like kind of a final thought?
Um, I guess I feel like the for the students, it's almost like it's more of a personal thing. It's more of like I'm hoping that they will embrace not only being at Berkeley. They've already made that choice. Okay, music in some capacity is going to be what's in their life, but that they will be able to kind of reach out to other people, just to have a support system that on a personal side, you know what I mean? A friendship, a mentor, a community. And that is something I feel like is really, really important, especially now. And, believe it or not, your teachers that you have, don't be, don't assume like, oh, they don't have time or they're not interested. If you need something, most of us are really willing, and I want to know what's happening with you. If you need help with something with music or even not with music, if it's within my capacity, I hope they reach out. And that's what I want to say is that, reach out in that regard. And the rest of it will fall into place, and
So this ties in, Ben, you're going to get the final question this time, which is the big question. We have to ask it. You almost already answered it, but Ben asks a question to every person who joins us. So I'm turning it over to you, Ben.
What's something that the students should be asking that they're not thinking of when they get to Berkeley?
oh, what should they be asking that they don't, but they should?
Yeah.
Huh? What should they be asking?
What do you want them to ask you? What do you want?
What do they want? What do I want them to ask me?
Yeah, what should they be asking?
I have no idea. I can't really, sum it up like that. I feel like every individual person has that different question. You know what I mean? If, it can't be the one answer, but, yeah, I don't know if I can answer that. I think it would be, what do you need, I guess, What do you
That's
need?
an answer. Yeah. What do you need for you?
What do you need from me, I guess? What do you need
Ah.
from me, the teacher, or,
Yeah, and I think that question, it's going to make everyone think a lot about, well, what do I need? Who are my teachers? What do they have? Who am I?
I
Right?
ask my students that, I'm sorry, when they come in for private lesson, what do you want to get from me? What is it that you want from me? You know what I mean? And they'll say a bunch of things. I'm like, well, okay, you can get that from anybody, or most people. And so hopefully there's a little bit of thought in there. I don't know.
No,
That's a good question, Ben.
I think too, what you're saying though, I've come to this realization that when the students, I tell the students, teacher's a better teacher because the questions make me a better teacher. Because I might present something, I think it's clear as day. Someone's sitting there like, I did not understand that. So when they ask me the question, it makes me think about a new way to approach it or a new way to
Oh,
help
yes.
them understand. So that's what I'm always saying to them, like, it's actually really important that you make your teachers better teachers through your
Yes.
questions.
Absolutely,
Yeah,
Cheryl.
and there's a lot of agency in that question. Like you have to really think about it. And what do I want from this teacher as opposed to someone else or another class? Or, why am I taking this class? Like own it, you know, own
And
your,
even if you're placed into that class and you don't know anything about that teacher, after a couple of weeks, this and that, you'll get to know what their, how their MO is and stuff. And then you'll be like, okay, well, how about, can I do like this? What about that? Oftentimes, the ear training thing, when I do in my ensemble, that's a big one that will open up a lot of different questions from my students. Like, oh, I can't hear that, or I don't understand. How do you do that? And I'm like, oh, okay, So yeah, there's
yeah,
a bunch of different ways to approach it, I think.
love that. This has been such a great conversation. Um,
Well, I appreciate you asking me,
and
Cheryl. It was
Cheryl, any
fun. Thank you for
final
having me.
thoughts? Any
Oh,
thoughts?
yeah. Thank you for coming on the show. And you know what? Because we came through the same time. Thank you for making Berkeley a better place than what we had. As great as it was, there were some things that need, and just that your thoughts there about asking the questions and asking to connect. Thank you for bringing that and making our school a better school.
Well, I really hope that's the case, because that's, what I would love to be doing.
That's so cool. Well, everybody, we're going to hang out for a little bit longer, but we hope you have a great day. And thank you, Cheryl Bailey, for being with us in this conversation. Thank you, Consuelo, for being our guest and being our colleague. And thank you, Ben Cody. We will be with all of the rest of you on the next Coffee Talk.